With the endurance event being a little over a week away, one of the main concerns that I've been getting from players has been regarding Mayhem Mode being used for the endurance event. Now, in all honesty, I found a real simple way to be able to complete the event efficiently and with very little cost and honestly very little time being used. Personally, I'm going to go for the completing the event using about $40 total. So before we talk about how you can do that, let's go break down some of the data for the different zones so we can discuss. Now, the first thing I actually want to look at is the value for each bundle. And I think that's important because I think a lot of players are under the impression that you have to go spend massive amounts of money to complete an endurance event. And with Mayhem Mode in particular, that's uh, that's really not true. And so I'm looking at the different bundles, and you can actually see what you get for each. Like the 4.99 bundle, as it is in the game, you can get 30 additional fuel cells and 1,000 extra coins. Now, in this particular case, I also noticed in parentheses what you get if you go buy it directly from the web store. The link for that is always in the newsletter so that you can go directly from the store. I know a lot of people have some distrust for the web store bonus. For me, what I've been doing is I've been buying stuff off the web store. I use my Cash App card so that if for whatever reason they're hacked, then only my Cash App information is available to the mobile store. So it's one thing to think about you for those of you to get other cards, Venmo, stuff like that. So it's not coming from directly from your bank account. But the Super Attack Bundle, 60 fuel cells, 2.3k coins. Mega Attack Bundle, 120 and 5k coins. And the one that I'm focused on primarily is that Colossal Attack Bundle. It's $39.99 US dollars. And what that's going to give you is 240 fuel cells. If I go get it from the web store, it's going to have an additional 12. And then the big thing for me here, and the point of emphasis, is going to be the coins. So you're going to go from 11k to 1650 in terms of your coins. That's going to be that extra 550 is actually going to be huge as we go over to the next slide. I mean, obviously you have your Ultra Attack Bundle 400 and your Supreme Attack Bundle for 249. Considering the bot just by himself with, I believe it was like Gold G1 is like $150. I don't advise going to get those bundles per se unless you have other plans that you're going to use the coins for outside of the endurance, or unless you're going to go power level, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But the big thing, and I'm going to expand this a little bit, is I'm looking at the zones. And when you go look at, well, the first thing I want to say about zones is you have to go pick zones that you're comfortable with. So when they had the individual endurance for Iron Bison and Lightspeed, one of the things that I noticed is people were getting frustrated because they were trying to go and do zones that they're actually not comfortable with. And so my advice is you have to pick a zone where you know that you can actually win easily by attacking the HQ, but still have enough health left for your bots to destroy the rest of the stuff on the battlefield. So what I'm looking at is this. I'm listed out each zone and the points that you're supposed to get per battle. So if you look in column B, that's what you get normally. So for zone 14, you get 200, 15 to 40, and 16 to 80, and 320 for 17, or what would normally be the prime zone. In this particular case, that's what you would get during a normal battle. That's the max, by the way. So you could get a little bit less, but everything we talk about today is going to be based off the max value. So when you go into column C, it starts to talk a little bit more about what you get in Mayhem Mode. So in zone 14, you get 500 max, 15, 720, in zone 16, 924, and in the prime zone, 1,120. So my plan is basically this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go buy that $40 bundle that we got, and I'm going to flip back over to that for a second. That $40 colossal bundle here is what's going to give you the 1650 for the coins and the 240 for the fuel cells. That becomes important in this particular strategy because if you start off, if you're one of the people that use a cyber pass, you're going to have 75 fuel cells. Excuse me. You're going to have 75 fuel cells already, and then when you go add the other 240 fuel cells, you're going to start off with a total of 315 for your fuel cells. What that's going to enable you to do is to do 21 battles. So when you look in column D, and it starts talking about the 21 battles, that's where we're coming from. So for me, what I feel comfortable with in the first part of the event, with the first part being the first 21 battles, I feel like I can do 21 battles comfortably in Prime Zone if I use a combiner. And that becomes one of the issues that people are kind of concerned about because, you know, with Mayhem Mode being 15 fuel cells per battle, what a lot of people have gotten used to doing in the normal events is just spamming their combiner and just winning each battle that way. And obviously it's on a 15-minute timer, so you don't want to necessarily continue to coin after you run out of fuel cells, which I understand. So in this case, I'm only going to use the combiner to win these first 21 battles. And as you can see, if I go into the Prime Zone, that's going to give me approximately 23.5K for completing those 21 battles if I win. So next to that, in column E, you can see that I got the total fuel refills that it's going to take for me to complete my 87.5K, and then how many battles it's going to take me. So I'm going to start off in the Prime Zone, but what I'm going to wind up doing is dropping down to Zone 16 after that first 21 battles. And you can see in that column G how many coins you have remaining. So that's for if you did every single battle, Zone 14, it would approximately take you, approximately you would need an additional 23,626 coins. And then as you go down, 11K for Zone 15, but once you get down to the Prime Zone and once you get down to Zone 16, you see you need a lot less coins to refill. Now the plan here is, and by the way, if you look down in the bottom right corner, we're estimating that a full fuel cell recovery is going to cost you 1,136 per shot. That's a number that I got from when I did complete the Mayhem Mode event for Iron Bison. So that said, what I'm thinking about doing is doing 3 battles. I'm going to do the first 21 in the Prime Zone, which I was able to successfully complete last time. And then after that, I'm going to just do 3 battles per hour. And the reason why I'm doing that is because if you wait an hour for the cooldowns, then you will end up having regenerating 15 fuel cells, which is going to be over the course of the day. That's going to be very helpful for you. The other thing I wanted to highlight is how I plan on tackling the event. Now, while I say I may very well go into Prime Zone with my war team, we'll do this off the basis that I plan on doing Zone 16 after I do my original 21 battles, and that will be how I proceed throughout the event, with the possibility of me maybe going up to Prime Zone. So the numbers may change, but generally speaking, if I do the first 21 battles while I'm full on fuel cells and take them all the way down to 0, I will do 21 battles, as I mentioned earlier, and for a grand total of approximately 23.5K. And then from that point forward, the rest of day 1, I'm going to spend about 16 hours doing Zone 16 battles, or 3 battles every hour for 16 hours. So that's actually going to give me 48 of the 70 battles that I have to do for all of day one. And then I will come back and only have to do approximately 22 more battles to complete the event. That'll put me about 8 hours in the day too. So all in all, it doesn't really take a lot of effort. It doesn't take a lot of cash either. Realistically speaking, I could spend the first 16 hours just doing the event, and I probably could complete the rest of it free to play. So it could actually make it cost even less than $40, depending on how dedicated you are to trying to maintain getting your battles through the event. I think it's great for the game to use the Mayhem mode, but let's actually go take a look at how I plan to do it personally with the teams that I've built. Now, what I'm going to be doing here is just showing how the teams I'm going to be using in this particular event. Like I said earlier, you have to be able to know which zones that you're going to feel comfortable in. So I'm using this from my live server. And so in this case, I'm going in the prime zone, which, when you go to the actual event, they won't have prime zone effects up there. So it'll be more like a zone 17 type thing. And it's all about using teams that you feel comfortable with. With this team, this being my war team, I'm comfortable with definitely comfortable with prime zone effects and everything like that. So I will probably use them in zone 17 during the endurance event. And it's just really one of the things that I saw that really messed people up during the endurance event for Iron Bison. Is people were just trying to go, they said they want to get the most possible. So guys that were usually doing events in zone 15 or zone 14 were trying to go into the prime zone so they could get the max points possible. You have to be able to stick to what it is that you would normally do, but you also have to take in consideration that you have to go and clear out everything on the battlefield after the fact. So my advice for people is to get the HQ down first and then go in afterwards and clear everything else out that you need to clear out so that you get max points. But what I wouldn't advise doing is just hammering away on stuff before you get that HQ, because you know that if you don't clear out the HQ, you don't get any, you don't get those points if you don't get rid of the HQ. So in this particular case, I know this team does well in the prime zone, so I'll probably continue to use them in the prime zone. I may consider using them in zone 16 if things go sideways. But then I built a couple other teams that I feel comfortable using in zone 16. So in here, I just kind of made a makeshift team, still following some of my same principles. And still following some of my same principles that I always use, and carry them in zone 16, see how that goes. Like I said, we're just going to be focusing on using 3 teams, letting you get some regen for your fuel cells that'll help carry you over throughout the event. Now, one thing I failed to mention is when you're doing this, when you're doing any of the using your teams, and when you're spending your coins, you only want to spend your coins on getting more fuel cells. So that means if you come back after an hour and you still need fuel cells, go get them. And that's what on the chart that I showed, it shows you how many refills that you're going to need total, depending on what zone you're fighting in. Now, as you adjust your strategies, that may change a little bit. Like, for example, for me, I know that I might do one team in zone 17, but there's going to be others that I use in different zones, and that's okay. That's going to change the strategy a little bit, but you know what the maximum is that you're going to need to use, and that will be helpful for you in the long run. So this has actually been the most problematic of the teams that I've been using, just because I'm very limited on rush tanks. So I just ended up using some beefier special class bots in the 4-star Sentius Malice and an Impactor, 5-star Impactor, just to try to help with the survivability, keep the guys up front from destroying the rest of the team. But in Zone 16, it's not going to be much of a problem for me. Obviously, if you got to use a different zone, then go ahead and do that. What you don't want to do is to end up losing battles because of anything that you trying to go too high. And in this case, you see I actually destroyed almost all of the base just by fighting naturally. So you're going to go get all those mayhem bonus points while you're doing that. Alright, so for my third battle, also again in Zone 16, somewhere that I feel really comfortable with this particular squad. And so, biggest thing for me is, like I said, just the comfortability that you have with your teams. I'm using full squads, so I am sacrificing some XP. My goal in this case is really just to make sure that my bid is met for the event. Now, I will say that there's a strong possibility that I may go into day 3 and just use the entire day to power level. I hadn't decided that yet, but if I do, XP core is 24 hours anyway, so it gives you the opportunity to just go in and get any additional points you have. Me, I always like to knock my bid out early and then go do the power leveling after the fact. It just helps me just remain focused on completion more so than anything else. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and get through this battle now. Obviously, I don't have Mayhem Mode available. I'm doing all of this in just regular farming. Zone 17 actually gets easier when you go do it in the event because they took away the prime effects. In this case, Zone 16 is Zone 16. I feel comfortable with these teams in Zone 16. If you have to go lower, by all means, go to a lower zone. I will be sharing the spreadsheets that I had earlier into my Discord. I'm actually building a library in there of just different things, some of the commonly asked questions that people have about the game in general. But I want to share like relevant content like this for how you can complete events and stuff like that, and just different stuff throughout the game. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, man, like I said, 3 battles. You do this, you wait an hour. And the way that I scheduled this so that you are able to do this on a schedule of about 16 hours for the first day. So it will be once an hour for the 16 hours that I'm awake per day. I'm planning on having 8 hours of sleep. Now, whether I actually get that much sleep or not, that's a completely different thing. But I'm planning for 8 hours of sleep, 16 hours during the day being awake, and just going in every hour, making my 3 attempts, waiting. And, honestly, for those players who have been around for a while, this is the way that it used to be. You used to just come in, you make, for me, it used to be during a normal event, it would be like, hey, I'm going to hit 5 times, and then I'm just gonna wait. And I was able to complete a lot of events free to play. Like when we had those 1 million point events and stuff like that. And I was able to complete those free to play by doing that. This isn't really any different, except with the exception is you'll have already spent $10 on the Cyber Pass. You'll have already spent $40 for your original 21 battles. So let me know in the chat or in the comments, I should say, how you feel about this particular strategy. I do think that it's going to work out really, really well for us overall. And as I said, you can do this for $40. Looking back Actually, let's go back and take a look at that chart one last time so we can have some final thoughts. So the last thing I wanted to point out is that doing the event, the way that I propose to do the event is you're still gonna have uh, probably 1 to 2 refills that you're still gonna need in order to complete the event. Honestly, at that point, I think I did some calculations, and by me doing Zone 17 for the first 21, and then doing the remaining battles in Zone 16, that put me at approximately is 80. It was around a little over 86K. So to do those last couple of battles, I'm actually willing to wait. I'd be done like 8 hours into Saturday or day 2 of the event, and so yeah, the $40 isn't gonna cover every single refill, but in most cases, it's gonna cover the majority of it, where you're able to complete the rest of it free to play. Like I mentioned earlier, and I'm gonna take my face out of the screen for a second so you can see the fuel cell recovery at 1,136. I think it's the way to go. So, like I said, let me know in the comments or in the chat if you think this is a good idea. This is something you're willing to do. It still leaves you an entire day and a half to power level if you want to. Um, but just to get to that 87.5K to meet your bids, I think this is the way to go. It's super cheap, it's super efficient, and it doesn't take up your whole weekend. You just got to just do a couple of battles after your cooldowns. So I look forward to talking more about this during my weekly live stream. So I will see you guys there, and I'll also see you on the battlefield. Freezy is out.